Let's talk about love once again. After a little pause, here we are again. Welcome, Andrew.
Thank you. Thank you, Selma. Welcome back.
Thank you. It's good to be back. And welcome, Rohit.
Yay! Good to be back again here with all of you and looking forward to a wonderful conversation.
Yes,
Yay.
yes. So we're going to be talking about um, a topic that is really interesting and that we, all three of us, pray anyone listening to us just further opens their heart. It's an invitation today that is sort of scary. Yet we do it and we just encourage you to, as we were talking earlier, Rohit, just look at fear in the face and kiss it and keep moving through it. Make peace with fear and keep moving. And the invitation is around what is it that you're not saying? What are we holding back to share with our partners in our lives? So, and there's all kinds of things that we hold back, and for all sorts of reasons that we do that, that we just refrain from saying, and we're not, and then we next thing we know, we don't even know anymore what we really feel and what's going on because we're so preoccupied with maintaining a certain view to our partner of who we are or how we want to show up to them and all of that good stuff. So the question, gentlemen, let's dive in. What is it that is not being told in the relationship? Andrew, is there anything specific that you can think of that normally you have the tendency of holding back and not sharing with your partner, and why? Anything comes to heart?
Well, Selma, typically I have prided myself on being authentic and um, not being ashamed of anything about myself. And when I look at myself, I'm really not ashamed of anything. But when I look at myself through the eyes of somebody else who I want to please, everything changes. And on many times, on many occasions, have I been in a relationship and I've intuited what my woman is thinking about, or what she does, what I know she doesn't want to hear.
Mhm.
And I deliberately try to find a way out of talking about it. And it is not a. Eventually, it will catch up. But for sure, eventually you will have to talk about it. And so the longer you hold it back, the longer your partner is going to know you've been holding it back, and the more weight is on that thought. And so it's always been incredibly. Every time I've had the courage to just say what it was that was on my mind immediately, and be ready for that moment to be the splintering of our relationship. Ready for that to be the moment where she goes, "Oh my God, I can't do this. We're over." But every time I've done it, I've basically been incredibly overwhelmed with gratitude because it wasn't as bad without all of that mental weight of holding on and waiting. She was able to receive the communication quite easily and quite maturely and go, "Oh, okay, well, I kind of feel that way too." Whether it be being attracted to other people or having doubts about the relationship or doubts about your career or where you want to live or um, what trip you're about to take and maybe not wanting to do that or bringing your mother on a date. Revealed a little too much right there.
It happens in real life.
but yeah, you just let it out, and you're like, this is the circumstance, um, and I'm okay. I'm okay with that. But what are your feelings? And you got to be ready for the exchange. But yeah, it's not going to get better later.
Do you feel, Rohit, that there's a part of us, in order to prepare to be more authentic, to share, there's a part of us that may be in need of invitation to receive, to be open to receive anything coming from our loved one? What are your thoughts about around that, Rohit?
And could you clarify that on receiving? What do you mean?
If we want to share anything, are we able to receive anything? Are we
Oh,
able to be?
gotcha. You're exactly on what I was thinking about.
Mm,
Um, what was moving through me as this topic came up is my own experience with this, which has been a very difficult one, and I'm going to share the kind of challenges I've faced and what I've been through. So, the first thing that I came across in terms of receiving, which you're talking about, is I didn't feel I would be received, and this came from a deep childhood experience of not being received because I was different, because I thought differently, because I believed in I could I could see through where people were at, and I didn't care to live the way they lived. I was out to find my own path, and because of that, because of being different, because of asking questions, because of not following the herd. Um, I found myself being criticized a lot and judged, which of course would have is very natural if you're doing that, right? But I didn't think of that way. I just was a sensitive person, and I received a lot of criticism for being who I am. And my perspective was that it was very difficult to be able to really reveal myself or really share who I am because people will not understand that, or they will judge and criticize and ultimately ostracize me and kick me out of their lives. So um, that kind of wounding, if you want to call it that, resulted in something else, which is always being focused on the other person, which served well, uh, just to a degree. You're always focused on what the other person wants, thinks, needs, feels. You're very attentive, very present. It led to developing certain skills that were helpful in relationships, but it took a while to understand how I was actually so how I was actually robbing the other person of getting to know me,
mm,
which then resulted in them developing a mythical notion of who I am, sort of putting me on a pedestal, trying to think that you don't really feel the way they do, or don't get hurt the way they do, or don't get upset the way they do, or think the way they do. So, um, what I'm getting at is because of that, I was not trusting that I can be received truly. And to see that created led me to um, have a very one-dimensional kind of experience. And it took a lot to really understand that I was deluding myself, that it was possible to reveal myself, it was possible to be heard, to be seen, and to be accepted for who I am. And to do that, I had to learn how to really share deep, vulnerable things that um, I was scared of being, judged for. Now, the fact is, because I was holding on to my own fears around this, I was judged. I was criticized. I did come across partners, or I chose partners who, at some point, turned around and used that information against me, because what you fear will happen, and so it did.
mm,
Um, and and it caused me to shut down further, and it was like a self-fulfilling prophecy. But eventually, I learned, and I'm still learning, how to stand in that, how to trust in myself, how to know that no matter what response I get, It is better to be authentic and to be true and to share from the deepest part of myself. Um, it is better to do that than to hide or avoid or pretend. Um, yeah. So therefore, being a man, so to speak, quote unquote, to speak, it is better to be. Uh, Being a man doesn't mean having to be tough and strong and always together, but it means to be able to have the courage to stand in the fire of what may appear as judgment, what may appear as criticism, what may appear as unacceptance, but to know that in being there, you're inviting your partner into the most important aspect of love, which is unconditional love. Because only when I reveal who I truly am and what I'm fearing and what I'm experiencing do I invite my partner. Maybe first their gut response is to judge or to criticize, say, how could you and why did you and da da da. But ultimately to come to a place where we sit in the fire together, the fire of our own flaws, the flaws of my partner might be that at that moment they judge me. Whatever that flaw might be, because that's really my training, which I called for, which I need from that person to overcome my fears. But as I learn to overcome that, and as we sit together in that fire, we begin to see each other for who we are. We go beyond all judgment and all criticism, and we arrive at the place of true unconditional love, which is what I want, which I know is what all of us want. And ultimately, it is, as you said initially, Selma, it's about facing that fear that we have. And it may be different for different people. I just shared my experience. Um, Whatever that is, and trusting that love will lead us there ultimately. So it has been a practice and a process. Thanks for asking.
It is a process. It is a process. I just remembered an episode in my own life years ago where I was under a lot of pressure in a given moment with my lover, and I at some point I just closed down. I shut down. I just shut down. So what that meant was there was there was a lot that I could share. There's a lot that I needed to share and to express. And I closed the wall, and that was it. I didn't say a word anymore, and that was it. And so I remember vividly we moved forward. In fact, the next day, we lived in separate states, so each one went home. And for the longest time, I had this. And when I say the longest time, it's possibly weeks, and that's long for me. I was holding on to that regret that in that moment that I had with my lover, I didn't fully express and open up what I was feeling. And so I was in my mind making the story of how did he interpret my behavior, and that things didn't work out because of that moment of closure. And so I built my own little story, as we all do. And, and I suffered so much because I wish I could go back and turn it around and open up. And so finally, I chose to take that as a lesson. And thank God, from that moment forward, anytime that I'm feeling that I'm about to shut down, I'm about to close down, I just have this, it's something that we all need to find which way works for us. For me, I reach out. I hold my lover's hand. I touch their heart. I just get closer because that closeness makes me relax. Even if I don't say what I have to say in the moment, just that I relax opens my heart again. I go back to center, to that place of, okay, I'm willing and able to share again. So I feel that all we need to be attentive to is to these experiences that keep closing us down, and so that we can learn our own dance through that, so that next time and next time, it will continue, like like both of you mentioned, it's a process. It's
Mhm.
not going to change from one day to another. It's just opening up that awareness to experiment what works best for us. Because in that, we are holding hands with our partner, inviting him or her to do the same.
Yeah. I like that. I really like what the way you learned how to do that. That's a great I thought, sharing, because that gives a really wonderful tool, or a way to approach that is, even if you're feeling scared to share, is just to come to a place of feeling safe with this person, creating that space so that you can begin to really express what's going on at a deeper level for you. Um, I think that's where we all need to trust each other, and trust love, and trust that we are actually well meaning. We actually care about each other. We're not there to harm each other. We're really there to love and support. That's why we got together in the first place. So I think that brings up something that um, I also learned along the way, which is learning how to speak from the heart, switching out of the mind and into the heart, and learning to express things from a deeper place, um, a more heart-centered place, and say, this is what I'm going through, or this is what I'm fearing, or this is what I'm concerned about, or this is where I am right now. It doesn't mean that it's true, it's just what I'm feeling in the moment. And I just want you to hear me out. You know?
Yes, and that's part of becoming vulnerable so
Mm-hmm.
that our partner meets us there. Because
Right.
if we keep in that space where vulnerability is not invited in, then none of us will get to that space. So I feel the quicker, the faster, the more authentically we can get to that space. Um, the quicker the meeting of both hearts in that space will become, and that helps in the whole sharing or opening up to share, because
Right.
some people are not easy to share.
Right. Yeah, I feel that's a two-way thing. It really is something that people need to create with each other. When you notice something happening with your partner, if you go there and start nagging them or judging them or, challenging them, there will be a defense that comes up, and there will be, a certain amount of shutting down that will happen. All defense is actually a shutting down that's happening. You're starting to hide behind logic, hide behind, um, your defenses, so that the other person doesn't hurt you. So the moment we notice ourselves going into defense, and I've become very acutely aware of those defenses when they come up, and learning how to stop and breathe and invite my partner into a different kind of communication. Whether it's the person who triggered me or whether I got triggered for whatever reason, that's not the point. The point is somehow to switch the dynamic at that moment and switch into um, an invitation to relax, open up, and share. To let the other person. So that what you did earlier was just holding the hand or a hug or just saying, I'm feeling this way right now. I just need you to be with me. I just need you to hear me out. Whatever invitation we can create. But just to know, for a lot of couples, because I've been there and I know they're probably either there right now or might go there, is if you come on with some kind of attack or criticism, know that your partner will not really share, and that there will be therefore that conflict, and that conflict will take you all kinds of places, but it will not take you into what is really going on. You can save yourself a great deal of heartache and fighting and all of that stuff that comes up by switching gears in that moment and saying, I sense something is going on with you. I feel something's happening. I know I've been watching you, for example, running to the TV or hiding with or being with your computer a lot, or doing this or that or the other. And I sense something's going on. I would be really wonderful if you could just take a moment and share with me, and perhaps we could explore that deeper. So creating that kind of invitation to address what's going on, rather than pushing each other into corners where we then come up with our defenses, and like a cat in a corner, we suddenly have our tail up and we're going, "Arr!" you know?
Vulnerability is a strength in relationships. You're used to kind of presenting the best side of yourself to when you're networking or talking to peers, but when you're in a relationship, that's the false stuff. That's the ugly stuff that doesn't tell your partner anything new about you, and it doesn't get them to open up either. When you're in a relationship and you're building trust, the more of your underbelly you expose, the more, you know, dark secrets that you expose, the more they're going to love you and go, wow, what a vulnerable, beautiful human being. I want to open up too. It encourages the other person to say, yes, you know, I was hurt as a child. My parents didn't do this for me, or and you don't want to get, well, it goes where it goes. It goes where it goes. It may be pity party. It may be, you know, the lessons you've learned through these challenges, but you go deep. You go straight to it, and no, you do not look like a polished, you know, knight in shining armor at the end of this conversation. But they know you to a much deeper level than anyone else, and it's awesome.
You mean the knight can take off his armor and still be
still be charming?
You mean knights don't keep their armor on all the time? Oh, God, that's going to break the whole bubble now.
And that is so.
Imagine if knights kept their armor on all the time. You know, there wouldn't be a whole lot of loving going on.
That could be awkward.
But instead of thinking of a knight in shining armor might really be quite the illusion that really keeps us all armored up and protecting ourselves. And see, all conflict is really about protecting yourself. It's all two people protecting themselves, lashing out, and armoring up. And the moment that starts to happen, the earlier you stop it, the better. Is the moment you're getting into conflict, know that conflict only happens in one way. You're making the other person wrong and you're putting up your defenses. That's the basic essence of conflict. And the moment that starts to happen, stop, pause, drop your armor, your defense, put down your weapons of blame and guilt and fear and go into that part of you that is naked, that part of you that is vulnerable. And then suddenly, as Andrew said so beautifully, both sides melt down into that place. And in that place, real love happens. In that place, true sharing and acceptance starts to happen. And I'm learning that it gets better and better and better. So, yeah.
It gets better and better and better, and that's the thing. The more we practice, the better it gets, the more comfortable we feel in our own skin as we keep practicing. And there's no such thing as the relationship ended because I shared this or said this or revealed this or that or the other. And that's an illusion that we all need to start looking at from a different perspective. Yeah. There's no such thing. Oh, I'm going to say this and that will be the end of the relationship, so let me not say it.
You know, Selma, even if that happens, let's take the worst case scenario. Even if that happens and the person leaves you because you shared something really, you know, tender or vulnerable or real, such as I was attracted to somebody else. Oh, you know what? When you're gone, I've been watching porn. Something like that. And then the other person just gets all flipped out and leaves you. Let's take that worst case scenario, all right? Yeah. I mean, that's our fear. It sometimes doesn't happen. Sometimes the person truly accepts us where we're at and loves us no matter what. And sometimes they leave. And that's the risk we're taking when we're sharing these kind of.
But it's a great risk.
Yes. It's a risk at learning that even if this person leaves me, I am no longer going to be ashamed of sharing who I am. I am who I am. I accept myself as I am. I love myself with all my flaws. I invite you to do the same. If you don't, all right, you may go. But I won't stop loving myself, and I will develop even more courage the next time around to be even more transparent and even more vulnerable.
Yeah.
Now you may say, well, why do I want to do that? That's such a risk to take. I could lose someone I love so much. And I'm going to share with you a little insight. There is a parallel going on between our spiritual growth and our romantic growth. The parallel is this, that we are spiritual beings living a lie that we are in this physical form, that we have this egoic mind, and that we are therefore, we can be harmed, we can be destroyed, we can be hurt. And while at one level it is true, our bodies can be hurt, our minds can be attacked, the deeper truth is that we are indestructible beings, we are energy, we are spiritual beings. We can never be hurt, we can never be destroyed, and that no matter what fire we walk through, it will only make us stronger, and it will only make us more evolved and deeper and fearless. Ultimately, it will make us fearless. Now, the parallel to that is in our romantic relationships. When we walk into the fire of relationships with our vulnerability, shedding our armor and our ego and our defenses and our fears that we will be destroyed by this person or this person will leave us, either way, and we come there as authentic beings, sharing our authentic self, even if that person leaves, even if we somehow go through hurt and pain. But by revealing that authentic self, we strengthen it. We strengthen that which we are and learn to trust it even more and more and more, and ultimately become fearless lovers. So ultimately, the invitation is to be fearless, to be unconditionally loved. And ultimately, if we stick to our grounds, it will happen. And I'm beginning to trust that more and more and more. And I invite all of you that are listening and being with us to start to trust that that's really the goal we're trying to get at. Not safety, not security, not acceptance, not oh, I should not be judged or whatever, but here's who I am, and I want to be loved unconditionally, and I want to love fearlessly. That to me is becoming more and more the invitation that I bring in myself and to others.
So maybe we should talk about a structure for those who are not sure where to start. To whom this seems like a very scary place. Rohit emailed us an article just the other day.
Yeah, by Reed Mihalko. So let's give him the credit for developing that, and maybe you could read it out to us or share it with us.
I'll paraphrase it for sure.
Okay.
Because it's not super long, but maybe we'll post it up on the website to make sure that people see where it's from.
Mm-hmm.
Essentially, he's come up with a formula for talking to your partner about the very thing you're deathly afraid of talking to your partner about. So what you do, essentially, is you write down what it is you're incredibly afraid to talk to your partner about. Then write down your fears of what you're afraid your partner is going to do when you tell him or her. Then write down what you wish would happen when you tell this partner, what you're really hoping the communication could produce, ideally. And then once you've got that list, you just move the the secret. You just move the item in question to the end of the list. Instead of starting the conversation with your partner by saying, "This is what I haven't been able to tell you for months or days or hours or whatever," instead you tell them, "Listen, this is what I'm afraid is going to happen when I tell you what I'm about to tell you. Da, 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 da. I'm afraid you're going to leave me. I'm afraid you're going to judge me. I'm afraid you're going to see me as less of a man. Here is what I'm hoping will happen when I communicate this to. I'm hoping that you will see my greater depth. That you will see that this is just another aspect of me, and that I really love you incredibly deeply to try to share this with you, and that I hope that our relationship will grow from this." And then here's the piece of information. And I thought that was brilliant because well, I just think it frames up what you're trying to do, so that the partner can see where you're coming from, rather than just hearing the information in whatever fear-ridden state it is, and you feel probably from beginning that communication that they are beginning to trust you, or prepare themselves at least for the information you're about to deliver. And it helps you therefore get it out, actually communicate it.
Yes, I think that is brilliant. I think it really helps not only the delivery of what we're so afraid of sharing, but also the way the person that is listening to us, the way that they will receive it. Because if like you said, if you get there and say, "Oh, I'm afraid of saying this," I mean, the person receiving it may stay in the drama of this, Now, if I come in and say, "Listen, I've been afraid of telling you something for these reasons. However, I'm going to share, hoping for these results," and so that frames for both of us. I love it. I really enjoyed reading it, and looking at it. I thought it's a very good frame to just organize what needs to be said. And you sharing anyways. It's just sharing with heart, I would say, for both.
I will also add a little footnote that it doesn't mean that means that because there's this technique that that things are going to go exactly the way you want.
Right. Yeah.
They may still slip out. They may still, you may still be raked over the coals, and you may still end up losing each other.
Yes.
That can happen. That's the risk you take.
The reminder is this: if you do, it's one of those things, like you were saying earlier, Rohit. It's if you do lose each other over something like that, then you've really never had each other to begin with.
Right. You see, Selma, I think this is so important, what you've just said. If you cannot love each other as you are, flaws and all, then you really didn't love each other. You might say the other way around, "Oh, he did this or she did that, and therefore I can no longer be with this person." I think that's very shallow. That is extremely shallow. And let me call it for what it is. It's yes, I understand the reaction. I understand you're hurt. I understand you're upset. I understand that you have a hard time trusting from here on. All that I understand. But I don't understand is that at that moment, when there was the biggest invitation to accept this person as they are, that's the moment you walked out. That was the moment that love was calling you to come in there, to look at the crap, to accept them and love them. And I don't mean, of course, I will exclude one thing: if someone's beating you up, and if someone is, I will exclude that out of the whole equation. Anything other than that, than physical abuse or rape, anyone acting against your sovereignty or your being, outside of that, when they've done something that is hard for you to accept, that you think is absolutely unacceptable, don't walk out. Stand there, face it, and learn to love them with their flaws, maybe work through it, That's your invitation to work through it. Love didn't come to you with guarantees. Just because you constructed love as a contract and you said some vows, don't expect those vows to necessarily be upheld. You know what? We all come in with great intentions. We have wonderful promises that we make and we hope for the best. But does it go that way ultimately? 9 out of 10 times, no. That's the fact. And when it doesn't, you know, let's not either slaughter each other and let's not leave each other. Let's stand in there and weather the storm and work it through and learn to love each other as we are. That to me is the invitation.
I love it. Yeah.
And I just love too the so many relationships end in life. More romantic relationships will end than you will keep. but to that's just a factual statement.
That's profound. I love that. That is
Factual statement. Get ready for it. It's gonna happen. So
the bottom line truth. You got it.
no, but to finish that processing, and I don't mean a relationship's been over for months and you're still talking about it necessarily, but when there is stuff left on the table that has not been said, that can take away brain cells. That can take away mental focus in your next relationship. Take full advantage of this person being open with you and sharing with you to fully digest what it is that they've shared, even if this relationship is no more. Because that is the teacher. That is the great teacher right there. You go on thinking, oh, I don't need to learn that lesson. And the next relationship's going to teach it to you even harder than that one.
Yes. Those invitations for growth and lessons will keep coming until we get it. That's Andrew. I am so with you.
And it's
yes,
beautiful. So beautiful to end a relationship that you have fully been present to and given your full all and respect, your 100% and your love, and then maybe that relationship transitions, but it's not even completely gone from your life because you have ended it in a way that is respectful and loving.
Yes.
And maybe that person will be an asset to you later in life when you need another mirror to help you see clearly.
I have a close friend of mine that had a relationship with a beautiful woman that keeps challenging him, like royally, right? So anytime he would come to me, Selma, I can't do this anymore. She's just so high maintenance. I can't. Do you love her? I love her dearly, And so he kept coming back and coming back, And one day, I think I said something that was huge because there was a little shift somewhere, and there was something that I keep reminding myself of. It's this, are you complete? Let's complete our relationships. We stop, for instance, okay, it's over because of what you just said, but we never really complete that process. Maybe that relationship was no more, as you said, Andrew. Maybe it's the case. Let's acknowledge that and really look at, are we complete? Are we done? So it's not that it didn't work. Oh my goodness, some relationships work so beautifully. And the moment that they're over, oh, it didn't work. Oh my goodness.
What a waste of time, huh? What a terrible waste of time that was.
All that was happening all this time wasn't working? If that wasn't working, then what is?
Exactly. Let's reframe that. We're complete. It was beautiful and we're complete. Let's move on to the next one.
Yeah.
But so yeah, but always sharing, always sharing.
Yeah. So it's recognizing that the journey of love is a journey into fear, always. And the one thing that's holding us back, and particularly as we've gone through, more than one, we've gone through relationships in our lives, more so that fear builds up, that armoring builds up, that those walls build up, and that, that sharing shuts down. It's very different when we were first teenagers and we had our first relationships. There was such a freshness, there was such an openness, there was such a magic. But to keep that magic alive really is what this is about. And that means shedding the armor. It means breaking the walls. It means coming back to the place of innocence. And that really means that it's important for us to stay in our hearts, and to not try to make not try to blame and hold our partner responsible for things that didn't work out. Love's intent is to transform us into something very incredibly beautiful. We don't want to shortchange that process. Its attempt is to transform and bring out the best in us. And for the best in us to be revealed, the worst in us will come out first. The worst will come out first. And when that worst comes out, that's the important phase of the relationship. That's where we begin to see each other as we are. So I'm going to share with you a little something from my book, Loving Soulfully, about becoming a fearless lover. And it goes like this. Safety and security attract the egoic mind, but are likely to suppress your deepest longings. The more you strive to be safe, the more you lose your essence and love. Death is safe and free of risk, yet we fear it. Life is unsafe and insecure, yet we refuse to embrace it. In rejecting these truths, you negate living. To be safe is to agree to live a living death. You have bargained with the devil and wonder why your life is a living hell. Through your attempt to control a world that cannot be controlled, you die to life's myriad expressions, her infinite mysteries and unparalleled joys. Love is life fully expressed. Love is vibrant, pulsating, and dynamic, filled with risks, fears, and unknown mysteries, filled with challenges, upheavals, and chaos. Love brings you to the edge of fear, pushes you over the cliff of safety, that you may be your truest self, experience life's most delectable delights, and soar for infinite galaxies.
How beautiful.
My book, Loving Soulfully.
Very, very beautiful.
Ultimately, that's where you go as you become a fearless lover. And to be fearless is to cut out the blame game, to cut out the hate and the accusations and the belittling of each other that we do, so that if in fact a relationship is to end, then it can be done gracefully, as you've been talking about. So that will lead us in that direction.
Romantic love can be very exciting. It can be very exciting to get back into the romantic structures, these these heartstrings that are yanking on you, and there's tons of fear, and you're just like, anxious, and you're like, oh my god, and you're terribly afraid of everything falling apart. And but that I think that can really work against what we're talking about. I mean, it's drama. It's bringing in drama, and the excitement of a new love. That's genuine, of course, but the framework of this person completes me, and that sort of romantic idealism that that the world is so full of, that our mass media is so full of, it is tempting because we may not have experienced the rush of the fear for a while, if we have been settling, if we have been getting comfortable in this graceful state of acceptance. So be careful you don't get lured back into it as if that's better than love honestly expressed and received. It's not better. And it doesn't last longer either.
It's
What I'm saying, Andrew, is that the mythology of love sets us up. The mythology of romantic love, that this person is the ideal person, this person is the one, there's something perfect and wonderful and incredible, because that's what happens in the beginning, is we're only looking at that great stuff. But the mythology of love sets us up for the disappointment when we begin to see each other as we really are. Because in the beginning, all we're seeing is the great stuff. We're not seeing, we almost are blind to all their flaws. And when we do start seeing the flaws, unfortunately, what starts to happen is we only see the flaws. And at that point, we say, you know, I can't put up with this. I deserve better. I know this is not what I came into this for. But you got to start with the idea that everybody on this earth is flawed. There is no perfect one. There is no one who is your ideal lover. Every single human being is utterly flawed. Some are more flawed than others, and that's it. So, seeing their flaws is the real gift of love. Accepting their flaws is the real challenge in front of us. And loving them with their flaws is the invitation that love brings us to. So, instead of looking for the one, the perfect one, look for the flawed one. And it's a question of what flaws would you like to work with?
Yes. What flaws would you like to work with? I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. Some flaws will not compromise my nature, my essence.
Right.
Some flaws will clash. What's going on there? Let's look at that with love, with an open heart, not with a judgmental eye, or look that one. I can't stand that flaw. But what are the ones that we can work with? I love that thought. Thank you for sharing that, Rohit. I like it.
We call those deal breakers, right?
Yeah.
This is a deal breaker. Like if this is what you are, then nothing's a deal breaker. Sit down and really, unless I said it's violence or whatever. But most other things are negotiable. There are things you can talk about. There are things you can find a way out of. They don't have to be deal breakers. So that's, when you start viewing the world as black and white, rather than, everything in between. So it's either perfect or imperfect, acceptable or unacceptable. We're just on a mental trip with that. And the truth is the world is not black or white. The mind, with its, very polarized way of looking at things, is not actually the best way to look at things. There's so many colors of the rainbow in between black and white. In fact, black contains all the colors, and so does white. So the absence of, or whatever. But the point is that the richness lies in all the different degrees within, and therein shall we find love, true love.
Love it.
It's in our flaws that we will find love.
I love that thought. I do. I love the thought that my lover is who he is, and I'm loving him through it all. I love that. That turns me so on.
In Japan, yeah. Wabi Sabi love. Did we ever talk about that?
Yeah. Well, I'm not sure we did. I'm sure we will. But yes, Wabi Sabi love. Yes.
Which is about being able to highlight. So if they have let's say a vase that is broken, and then they will highlight the flaws by putting light on the flaw, and highlight, instead of trying to hide it and conceal it and pretend it doesn't exist. They will actually highlight it and make it even more interesting because of the flaw. And what if we could do that with our lovers? View their flaws as their strengths.
Love it, gentlemen. Final thoughts, my dear ones?
That was it.
Um, write it. Yeah, write it down. I would say it's really smart. Write down what you're afraid of saying, so that you can at least be brave enough to say it yourself. And then just there's never going to be a perfect time to say it. So figure out when you're going to say it and do so.
And one more thought. If you wait for the big thing to say and then start practicing this, you will probably be very inept and fumble through it real badly. I would suggest practicing this on a regular basis. Practice this for all the little things, so that when something big does come up, you've both become really seasoned in being able to take on that level of truth-telling and vulnerability and sharing. And you both become more courageous, and you both become more accepting. So you actually cultivate this rather than save it as something, in your back pocket for when you really mess up. On a day-to-day basis, share and look at how can I be more vulnerable, more open, share more of what's going on with me. And it could be something small, and you start with the small stuff. That's how you get really good at it. It's like training wheels.
Yeah, it's like a muscle. And you exercise it little by little, every day a little bit. In the little things, that's good practice. I like that.
Yes.
Good. Okay, and we talked about love once more. Thank you for being here. It's always such a joy to have you around, gentlemen. I love this, love it. And I love the feedback from my students. They always come back with all these really interesting little tidbits of, when you said that, that's really interesting. That made me think about, you just never know what can trigger what. So that's our intention, that everyone keeps opening, including us, keeps opening and opening and opening more and ever more our hearts for an authentic, beautiful life filled with unconditional love for one another. That's it. See you next week.
All right.
Yes. All right. Oh, love you. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. It's a pleasure. It's a joy having you and spending time with you. Keep well. Keep opening your heart. Keep rising in love. And stay there. Love you.